I'll read the first two verses, translation, and then go to the 13th verse. Translation purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Prabhupada. The goddess Durga was decorated with flower garlands, smeared with sandalwood pulp, and dressed with excellent garments and ornaments made of valuable jewels, holding in her hands a bow, a trident, arrow, a shield, a sword, a conch shell, a disc, a club, and being praised by celestial beings like Apsaras, Kinnaras, Urgas, Siddhas, Chanaras, Gandharvas, who worshipped her with all kinds of presentations. She spoke as follows. O Kansa, you fool, what will be the use of killing me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has been your enemy from the very beginning, and who will certainly kill you, has already taken his birth somewhere else. Therefore, do not unnecessarily kill other children. After speaking to Kansa in this way, the goddess Durga, Yogamaya, appeared in different places such as Varanasi and became celebrated by different names such as Annapurna, Durga, Kali, and Bhadra. Purport. The goddess Durga is celebrated in Calcutta as Kali, in Bombay as Mumba Devi, in Varanasi as Annapurna, in Kathak as Bhadra Kali, and in Ahmedabad as Bhadra. Thus, in different places she is known by different names. Her devotees are known as Shaktas, or worshippers of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas worshippers of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself are called Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are destined to return home, back to Godhead, in the spiritual world, whereas Shaktas are destined to live within the material world to enjoy different types of material happiness. In the material world, the living entity must accept different types of bodies. Brahmanya sarva bhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 61. According to the living entity's desire, Yogamaya or Maya, the goddess Durga, gives him a particular type of body, which is mentioned as yantra, a machine. But the living entities who are promoted to the spiritual world do not return to the prison house of the material body. Jakta denam purna janma naeti mam eti sa arjuna. The words janma naeti indicates that the living entities remain in the original spiritual bodies to enjoy the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental abode of Vaikuntha or Vrindavan. Om Jnana Trimandandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshu Zulmultam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Vanchakalpatrubhyasya Kripa Sindhuvyacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in this chapter, which is entitled The Atrocities of Kansa. Of course, in the verses we have just read, he's describing how Kansa was trying to kill the eighth-born child of Devaki. And as we know from the previous chapters, the eighth child born to Devaki and Vasudeva was not a female, but it was a male. And that male child is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, whom Vasudeva took across the river to Nanda Maharaj's palace and stopped him with Nanda Maharaj's daughter. Now, of course, nobody knew what was happening. Now, you can just imagine that when we read Srimad Bhagavatam and the pastimes of the Lord's advent are mentioned, that at the time when Krishna appeared before Vasudeva and Devaki, he was fully in his full manifestation as a four-hand form of Vishnu. And Devaki and Vasudeva were so much happy to see the beautiful form of the Lord appear before them. But of course, Devaki is praying that we would like you to be our child. So of course, Krishna, as Prabhupada mentions many times, that he is the well-wisher of all living entities and he fulfills all desires of all living entities. And this is the underlining part. He fulfills all desires of living entities. whether good or bad. Because Krishna is not looking at it from the point of view, what is good for you or what is not good for you. He leaves that to your judgment. As we have also understood from philosophical explanation of many acharyas, that the living entity has granted independence, free will, free choice, free thought. So it's not imposed on anyone. Now what you desire is up to you. Now, if you are associating with saintly persons, then your desires will be much more saintly. In other words, they'll be connected with the Supreme Lord and try to serve the Supreme Lord. Whereas if you are not associated with a saintly person, but you are associated with a materialist person, whose only concept of life is enjoy. So therefore they have many material desires to enjoy separate from the Supreme Lord. So of course Krishna fulfills that also. So here, Devaki is praying to the Supreme Lord and saying that I would like to see you as my child. So of course Krishna then manifests himself as a beautiful young child. And Vasudeva and Devaki are so happy to see the beautiful child. But then there is fear in the heart that Kansa has already killed the other children. And the same fate will be for the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So out of fear of losing the child, Vasudeva takes Krishna to Nanda Maharaj. And of course, as we read from the commentaries from the other acharyas, we're saying that when Yashoda Maya, when she gave birth to the child, she was in so much pain of childbirth that she was unconscious. So she did not know whether she gave birth to a boy or a girl. Now, of course, remember, this all takes place in the dead of night, at midnight, when the decent people in the world are usually in the slumber. They are all asleep, so nobody's awake. Everybody's asleep. So same time, when Yashoda gave birth to the baby girl, the only person who were with her were Nanda Maharaj and the midwife. And of course, Yashoda was unconscious, so she was not aware of whether the child born is male or female. But somehow by transcendental arrangement of the Lord, Vasudeva took Krishna from Mathura to Nanda Maharaj. And then Nanda Maharaj, also by transcendental understanding, was known that Vasudeva is bringing Krishna to him, and he's going to swap over the girl child. So of course, when the girl child is swapped over and is taken back to Kansa's kingdom, and the very next morning, the crying of the young child is heard, and immediately Kansa gets to know that, oh, the 8th child is born. Now, of course, as we all know, that he was told on the day of Devaki and Vasudeva's marriage that the 8th child of Vasudeva and Devaki will be the one who is going to kill him. So, of course, Kansa, he did not heed to that instruction. He just took it that any child, because of course Narada Muni, of course, played a trick on him. He's saying that if you count in a circle, which is the 8th and which is the first one, you cannot know. So, of course, he killed all of them, and then he was now just about to kill the female child of Vasudeva and Devaki. Now, Vasudeva and Devaki are pleading to Kansa and saying that it is supposed to be a male child who is supposed to kill you. However, this is a female child. At least spare her. And Kansa is nothing doing. Because in the material world, the greatest fear is death. Everyone fears death. And because of that very nature of the material world, Kansa was completely fearful of death. Although he was a very powerful guy, he had tremendous powers and supported all the asuras to protect him and support him, but he was fearful. Also, we read in the Bhagavatam of the other great demons, like Hiranyakashipu. Although after performing so much tapasya and invoking the mercy of Brahma, he got the boon, which he thought in his foolish intelligence that he has covered every aspect of death. So now he's immortal. He cannot be killed. But there's still fear in his heart that death will come. And of course, we all know just a few weeks back we celebrated the appearance of Nrsingadev. And when Nrsingadev came from the pillar, there was fear in the heart of Hiranyakashipu. And he tried to defend himself. And there was a long fight which pursued, and eventually, of course, the Lord, brought his demise. So similarly, Kansa here is very, 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 very powerful person, but he's fearful of death. Now, in our own estimation, we can know that a newborn child, how can a newborn child have powers to kill such a powerful man? But Kansa is having nothing to do with it. He's just saying, I just want to kill this child, and that's it. Once I kill this child, then I'm free from the fear of death, because the transcendental voice from the sky spoke that this child is going to be the death of Kansa. So if he gets rid of the child, then of course there is no more death. So he was now thinking that this is going to happen. Of course, we have read in the previous verses the description how he's trying to kill the girl child, and when he grabs hold of the legs of the girl child and tries to sort of smash it against the wall, the child slips from his hand, and then in the air, the goddess Durga's form is manifested, which is described here, where she is holding all kinds of weapons in her hands, and then telling Kansa that, you fool, the one who's going to kill you has already been born long time ago. Now you can imagine here, the words are here. Oh Kansa, you fool. What will be the use of killing me? The personality of Godhead, who has been your enemy from the very beginning, and who will certainly kill you, has already taken his birth somewhere else. Now, the words used here is that from the very beginning. Now, beginning means it must have been a long time ago. Here, the child has just been born barely 24 hours ago. So in other words, the Lord's appearance and disappearance is not limited to material time concept. It is way beyond our concept of time. Because in this material world, the only way we can judge time is on a linear basis, from point A to point B. And if there is no point A, then we don't know where to count the time scale. So everything, even our watch dials, everywhere, there's a point which starts from one point and then it comes to the other point. And between those points, you can calculate your time scale. So here is that the Lord is eternally there. And as we know that the Lord, He will come to destroy the miscreants, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya cha duskritam, that He comes millennium after millennium. So from the very beginning, the Lord is always going to be there to destroy the miscreants. So here, of course, Goddess Durga is saying to Kansa that your demise will be going to happen certainly. There's no stopping you. So what is the use of killing all the other children? Because they are not in any harm. But of course, Kansa was not going to stop at that, as we know from the story from the Bhagavatam, that he sent all kinds of demons all over the four directions, and that anybody who's born within that short period of time should be killed. Just see the fear. But then, of course, the Supreme Lord, He cannot be killed by anyone or anything. He is the supreme existence. Without Him, everything ceases. So here, Kansa is fearful of his death. And then in the 13th text, it is described here that Goddess Durga, when she appeared, then she appeared in all different parts of India in her expansions, and she's worshipped. And it's very interesting in the purport, Prabhupada is saying that due to our illusion, we worship goddess. In India, if you know, is a standard practice that there are so many temples dedicated to Goddess Durga all over the country. And the reason why is that they pray to Goddess Durga for material boons and material benefit. And as is explained here, that it is her duty to fulfill all your material desires. So all our material desires are fulfilled simply by praying. And to worship Goddess Durga, it doesn't need great sacrifice. It doesn't require tremendous discipline. As we know from our practice in Krishna consciousness, that in order to engage in pure devotional service, there's a lot of sacrifices, a lot of determination, and a lot of purities of the heart is required in order to connect with the Supreme. But to worship Goddess Durga, there is no hard and fast rules required. And you can worship Goddess Durga with anything and any other paraphernalia you like, and she will easily dispense with whatever your desires are. So all your desires can be fulfilled very easily. And as long as we are in the material world, the illusion of the Maya's energy is such that we will think that this world is perfect, and this world is perfectly situated for us to enjoy. And therefore we'll make all different arrangements to enjoy. And to enjoy, of course, we need material facilities, and therefore these material facilities are granted by Goddess Durga, as Prabhupada mentions, either Yoga Maya, Mahamaya, all the different forms. Nonetheless, they are all forms of the Goddess. She comes and fulfills all your desires. But the consequence of all your desire is that more and more you try to enjoy the facilities of the material world, the more and more you get deeper and deeper entangled in the material world. And the more and more deeper you get entangled, then you have to take repeated rebirths. As mentioned in the purport of Prabhupada here, that those who are worshippers of Goddess Durga or Shaktis, they will be caught up in the cycle of birth and death in some sense you can say for eternity. Because for every desire you have, you try to fulfill, you get more and more entangled. And the more and more you get entangled, the more and more births you have to take. Until one day, the soul realizes that all this sense enjoyment is futile. And the soul then begins to think, as Vedavyas has made his first aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Therefore, you inquire. So at that point, the spirit soul will say, why? And that is the beginning. And of course, when you first make that inquiry in your heart, the Supreme Lord in your heart is Paramatma, is observing you. And he sees that you have some indication or shown some indication that I want to know more. I want to know the reasoning behind this. And that's the beginning of the Lord's mercy, that he then brings you to the transcendental knowledge, which will free you from illusion. And as then Prabhupada mentions, that those who worship the Supreme Lord, for them, there is no returning back to the material world, but they go to the spiritual world and live eternally with the Supreme Lord. But here, as Prabhupada mentioned, that many parts, specifically he's mentioned in the purport, that in Calcutta they worship Kali, in Bombay is Mumbai Devi, Varanasi is Annapurna, Cuttack is Bhadra Kali, Ahmedabad is Bhadra, and so forth. In fact, there are so many temples of Goddess Durga that sometimes you wonder, are they bona fide temples or are they just concocted temples? Because in my family, you know, when the child is born, after a certain time, the child is taken to the village goddess, and her name is given some obscure name. I don't even know if it's bona fide name or not. But then I found out, when I made some research, that there are so many what they call school devi, and family goddesses. Now can you imagine, there are so many families and so many villages and so many goddesses, whether they're bona fide or not bona fide, I don't know. Because, of course, all the bona fide names of the Lord and his devotees are mentioned in the scriptures. But anyway, they go and perform all these rituals. And recently, one of my nephews his son was taken to their village in Gujarat, and I happened to be in India, so they invited me. So I went along to see this function, and there was this Durga temple there. And I was thinking, what is going on here? Because there's a nice shrine, and there's like a big temple hall. And in the temple hall, they put kind of a barrier. Now it's the same temple room, but there's a barrier. And on one side of the barrier, you can walk around with your shoes on. And on the other side, you take you go without shoes. I was thinking, it doesn't make sense to me. Just like you imagine that in this temple room, we sort of put a little barrier here, saying this side shoes are allowed and this side shoes are not allowed. It's a foolishness, I think. And of course, I was thinking that why they are doing this. Then, of course, I was sitting there chanting my japa, and then maybe Krishna gave me some intelligence at that point, saying this is because the goddess is covering them with illusion. And because the illusion is there, they cannot tell what is right and what is wrong, but they justify everything according to their own little, covered intelligence. And they were doing all kinds of things. And we know for a fact that even if you go to any shrine, if someone offers you some Mahaprasadam in the temple room, you take it with respect and then go outside and honor it. You don't start just munching away right in front of the Lord. So I've noticed this, this system basically, in many different temples. Jai Radha Gokulandan. And when I go on a pilgrimage in India, I visit many different temples. And across our pilgrimage, in all the different tirthas, you come across the temples of Lord Krishna or temples of Lord Vishnu. And along with that, you get temples of Goddess Durga, you get temples of Ganesha, you get temples of Lord Shiva. And of course, out of respect, we visit all these different temples and show our respect to the different demigods, who are, of course, representative of the Lord also. So it's, it's a kind of disrespectful if you don't offer them honor and pray. So anyway, so I go and visit many of these centers, and I find that this discipline is there. But at this sort of shrine when I went, which I've not been to many of these so-called family devis or family goddesses or temples, but this one I went because I was invited by my nephew to grace his son's ceremony there. And I was thinking, why is this happening? It's illusion. It's covering, Maya is covering you. And you're thinking that you're doing some spiritual activity. So then later I questioned my nephew. I said, what is this nonsense? I said, no, this is tradition. I said, when this tradition started? With your father and his father and his father and his father? And I don't see this temple here is like, thousands of years old. So I would conclude from that it is not a thousands of years old tradition. This is some tradition concocted by some guy who happened to come in this village, and they set up some shrine and to satisfy their material needs, and they're concocting all this nonsense. So I said, my dear boy, give all this nonsense up. You come to our Hare Krishna temple. I will teach you the real way of worshipping and getting the blessings of the Lord. If you want real blessings, the real blessings come from the Supreme Lord. All this what you have done is just is a ritual it's not going to bring any fruits. Only thing is, your pockets will get empty. Because of course he spent thousands of pounds in inviting many of his family friends and village people and feeding them, all kinds of foodstuffs. So I said, what is the value of this? So of course, as is mentioned here, then as Saktais, people are performing all kinds of worship. Even as the Prabhupada mentions here, that in Calcutta, Goddess Kali, now, that's a terrible, terrible place to go to in Indian. Because if we have any sense of intelligence, we would know that if you go to a place of worship, it should be very serene, very peaceful, very clean, and it should give you spirituality. It should give some kind of a spiritual attraction to it. But I don't know if anybody's been to the Kali temple in Calcutta. It is the most degraded place. where they just bring all these young goats and just slaughter them in front of the goddess, and there's blood oozing. It's terrible. And in fact, I'll just say another experience of mine. I was in Agartala, in Tripura Strait, and there was one devotee who was stationed there to establish our preaching in Agartala. So he came to me and saying, Maharaj, I'm going to take you to a very beautiful temple. It's temple of Tripura Devi. So I said, as the Prabhupada mentioned, there's many Devis all over the places. So this Tripura Devi, she's very, very famous in Tripura, and that's why the state of Tripura is named after her. So I said, oh, okay, since I'm here, I don't mind, because for me, Goddess Durga is the one form of transcendental sister of the Supreme Lord, which we worship her with great respect and honor as part of the worship of Lord Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra. So of course Subhadra Maya is very, very, very merciful, because by her mercy you can also get the mercy over her brother, who is the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So I said, okay, I will go to Tripura Devi. And as we are coming down, and we stopped over and got out of the rickshaw, and then as we were walking, I saw this kind of an open sewer. It was filled with blood. I said, why is this? He said, they bring hundreds and hundreds of goats here as an offering to Tripura Devi, and they get all their wishes fulfilled, and she blesses you. So I said, stop right now. I am not going any further from here. First, I cannot see an animal slaughtered, and if someone is slaughtering an animal, I will probably try and slaughter the person who is slaughtering the animal, because, I cannot tolerate that. So we will not go any further. But the point is that under illusion, we concoct all kinds of worships, thinking, our material desires will be fulfilled. And as we do all kinds of this mode of ignorance worship, and the goddess, of course, it is her duty, as Prabhupada explains, that Maya Devi, as a pure devotee of the Lord, her only duty is to serve her Lord and Master, who is the Supreme Lord Krishna. And we all know that we want to please the Supreme Lord. That is why we engage in devotional service, and we do our service in such a way that it is pleasing to the Lord, who is our Master, as devotees of the Supreme Lord. So here, Goddess Durga, as a devotee of the Supreme Lord, is also doing her duty. And her duty is to keep the living entities encased in this material world. So any indication from a living entity to Goddess Durga saying, I want. She says, I'm so happy, fulfilling their desires. So easily your desires are fulfilled and you are so happy. But of course, as I said, that the more and more your desires are fulfilled, the more and more you get entangled, and more you get entangled, the more and more difficult it is to come out of this material world. And the cycle of birth and death continues over and over and over. But when we come to the Supreme Lord or His pure devotee, and He shows us the right path, and He frees us from this misconception, and then our real journey, our spiritual journey begins to go back to the spiritual world. Of course, I'll mention one more place. It's very famous in India. It is in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. It's called Vaishnava Devi. Now, when I heard that name, Vaishnava Devi, so she's Vaishnava and she's Devi, so she's goddess for Vaishnavas. So I did some research on that, and they said that the name she got as Vaishnava Devi is because she is very, very merciful towards Vaishnavas. And she fulfills all the desires of the Vaishnavas. Now, of course, what is the desire of the Vaishnava? The desire of Vaishnava is to become perfect devotee of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So, I was thinking that hundreds and thousands of people are visiting that shrine, and it is not an easy place to go. It is quite difficult to go up into the mountains, and it's quite a treacherous trek to go up there. And I think all these people are going up there, and they must come out from that temple completely blessed by Vaishnava Devi, and their hearts will be completely filled with love for Krishna. But when they're coming back, their hearts are not filled with Krishna prema. Their hearts are filled with more material desires. And it is said that actually there are many people go there because they have some material desires to be fulfilled. And they said that if you go and make an offering in that shrine, then all your desires will be fulfilled. So they go with this material concept. Now Vaishnava Devi, from my research, I understand that she is the most transcendental manifestation of Goddess Durga, who is so pleasing to the Vaishnavas. And she blesses Vaishnava with Krishna prema. Now there she is, very happily dispensing all the blessings that one can become a perfect Vaishnava. And what happens? People knocking on her door, coming with all material and all, desires. What can she do? She has to fulfill. Because as we say, of course, in our prayer, the Vanchakalpatrubhisha, Kripa Sindhu, the Vaishnavas are all fulfilling. So here is Vaishnava Devi, she's all fulfilling. So whatever desire you come, will be fulfilled. So she's fulfilling all those desires. So I think that people have got misconception of what is that shrine supposed to be dispensing. Not material desires, but supposed to be dispensing Krishna prema. Because it's very easy to get Krishna prema if you fulfill, or rather if you pray to a pure devotee. Sometimes it is very difficult to connect with Krishna, but to connect with this pure devotee is very easy because the devotees are very much compassionate and they will very easily dispense their blessings upon you, and therefore you will become a perfect devotee. And we see that in our very own spiritual leader, Srila Prabhupada, that when he went to America, his heart was only full of blessings for the conditioned souls. And he blessed them all. And simply by his Prabhupada's blessings and Prabhupada's touch of their hearts, they changed. They become perfect Vaishnavas. And then these perfect Vaishnavas took that same compassion and went around the world and showered upon other living entities. And more living entities are getting blessings of these Vaishnavas, and they're becoming Vaishnavas. And taken to the spirit of devotional service in the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and joining the Sankirtan movement to become purified themselves and purify others. So if we worship the Vaishnava in the right sense, then of course we can really get the blessings of the Vaishnavas and be freed from all misconceptions and illusions. There's one more story I will say of how great a Vaishnava is. That in state of Gujarat there was one devotee called Narsi Mehta. Obviously, we all know that in India there's different Brahmins, and generally they have their Ishtadev, and mostly the Brahmanas, their Ishtadev is Lord Shiva. So this Brahmana, his Ishtadeva was Lord Shiva. But from the very young age, he was so much attracted to chanting the holy names of the Lord. So wherever there is kirtan, where there is satsang, he would go and just enjoy the kirtan. He would just completely be in a transcendental mood of chanting the holy name. As he was growing up, his elder brother was taking care of him. But unfortunately, his sister-in-law was a bit of a, not a wonderful person, you can say, in sense, the way she treated Narsi Mehta. So she told her husband that your brother, while he was young, it was okay that we took care of him. Now he's a young man. He should go and get a job so that he can help the family in their expenses and everything. And of course, Narsi Mehta, he knows nothing but satsangs. So all his days, he was spending his time, he was going to different satsangs and hearing the holy names. Then finally, they said, okay, we have to get this young man married. So if he gets married, then he will have responsibility. Then he will definitely get a job. So of course they get him married. And after getting married, he still goes to satsangs. He forgets, who cares for this job business, 9 to 5, earn money and become more entangled, So, of course, his heart was completely absorbed in chanting of the holy name, attracted to the Supreme Lord. Anyway, time is not so much, so I'll cut the story short. So at one point, the brother and his sister-in-law started cursing him, saying that you are a useless guy, you don't help us in any way. Before you were one person whom we had to take care of. Now you married, and you have a wife, so we have to take care of 2 people, and our burden is even more heavier than before. So I think you should get out of our house. Just leave our home. So Narsi Mehta said, fine. I am not dependent on you. I am dependent on Krishna. So he went into the mountains, and there was a small Shiva temple there. So he started praying to Lord Shiva. And he was doing austerities because there was no food, no other things. So he was just praying to Shiva with whatever forest flowers and leaves he would get and fruits he would find and offer to Shiva, and he was praying. And then Lord Shiva was so much pleased by his worship that he appeared. He said, I am pleased with your service. Ask for whatever boon you want. Now, Narsi Mehta, when he saw Lord Shiva, he was completely overwhelmed by the aura of Lord Shiva. And he said to Lord Shiva, that if you so desire to give me a boon, then fulfill one boon of mine. And that is, give me that is most precious to you in your heart. And Lord Shiva was saying, what? Now Lord Shiva, of course, since time immemorial, has got many Shiva bhaktas, and everybody is paying to Shiva to get all kinds of boon. Well, one of the famous ones we know is Ravana. He prayed to Shiva for what? Power, immense power and wealth. But here, Narsi Mehta is asking for that which is most dear to Lord Shiva. Now, of course, we would think most dear to Lord Shiva is Parvati, his consort. But no. And in fact, Lord Shiva says that even people come to the extent that they want my beautiful Parvati. But you're asking more than that. And what is most dear to me? Of course, the most dear to me, and Lord Shiva says, is the Supreme Lord himself. Because as we know, Lord Shiva is the topmost Vaishnava. Vaishnava Tha Sambhu. He is the topmost Vaishnava. And a Vaishnava has only the Supreme Lord in his heart. So when Narsi Mehta asked for this boon to be fulfilled, Lord Shiva said, well, I cannot give you Krishna, but I can take you to Krishna, and Krishna will give himself to you, because ultimately only Krishna can give himself to you. Nobody. Even the spiritual master, he directs you, guides you to Krishna. Then it is between you and Krishna. So the pure devotee, he cannot give you Krishna in that way, but he can take you to Krishna. As we sing in our prayer, Yasya Prasade, Bhagavat Prasade. So by the mercy of the spiritual master, one gets to know Krishna. And when one gets to know Krishna, then Krishna will give himself to you. So of course, Lord Shiva takes hold of Narsi Mehta's hand and he takes him to the transcendental Vrindavan groves, where Krishna is performing his rasa dance. And Krishna is performing his rasa dance, but Krishna, you see, is aware of everything. So while he's satisfying the gopis' desires of rasa dance, through the side of his eye, he sees Shiva standing there. And he says, hello? What is he doing here? Because this is only meant for the gopis who have reached the highest ecstasy of bhava. So he goes to Lord Shiva and says, you're in the wrong place, my boy, here. So of course Lord Shiva says, I had no choice, dear Lord, but this devotee is asking for a boon that he wants you, and only you can be granted by your, you can only grant him that. So, of course, by the mercy of Lord Shiva, Narsi Mehta got the blessings and darshan of Lord Krishna, and then Lord Krishna blessed him and said that you go back to the material world and you live your life and fulfill your duties, and whenever you need me, just call out and I'll be there. So, of course, this is another understanding that if you worship a Vaishnava or Vaishnavi, then we get tremendous blessings of the Supreme Lord. But if we ask a Vaishnava or Vaishnavi for material boons, then they will fulfill those boons also, because they are all fulfilling. And a Vaishnava will never let anybody go empty-handed. So be careful what blessings we ask from the Lord and Lord's pure devotees. Otherwise, we could be in a very much entangled position. So it's 8:30 now. I'll stop here.